Back for another episode of Standpoint. I'm Gabe Groisman, and you might notice something totally different this week. Yes, I'm sitting in an RV. This is my RV. This is one of the good things that happened from COVID. They told us we couldn't leave our house, so we got a house with wheels, started traveling around the country, and we've kept it. And wherever we can, we go out and we see our beautiful country. Yes, we fly an American flag. Usually it's in the back of the RV. Brought it out here as a backdrop to block the window a little bit. And also, what a patriotic week. There's some big feelings of patriotism this week. It's a strange feeling to have a presidential candidate, a former president, shot at and an assassination attempt. It's something that I think most Americans look at and just nod their head and they just cannot believe it, nod their head in disbelief and in disgust at the shooter. And we don't have to say his name. We don't have to keep giving him that glory of putting him out there. His name should be forgotten. It's in the dustbins of history, should not be illuminated in any way, shape, or form. So listen, this last Saturday, it was like every Saturday, it was the Jewish Sabbath. So every week, well, the Jewish people take a day where we rest. We don't use our phones, computers. We don't work. It's the day of rest, the biblical day of rest. God created the world in 6 days. We learn in the Bible, and on the seventh day he rested. And one of the 10 commandments is that we should observe the Sabbath as a day of rest, and that is what we do for that day. By the way, it's a fantastic thing to do, a day with no technology, no phones, no computers, just with your family and what's important to you, something that I encourage everyone to do in their own way. But the byproduct of is people that observe the Sabbath don't find out what's happening in the world during the Sabbath unless someone comes in and tells them. And I was in an RV park in Virginia with my family, and we didn't know anyone else there. Nobody came. No one told us what happened. So it was about 9 o'clock when the Sabbath ended, and we turned on our phones and the computers, and everything was just exploding. I mean, just Trump was shot, assassination attempt. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And of course, I did not believe it at first, because that's the era we live in today, where we don't believe the news we hear, no matter who's giving it to us. And I think that's actually healthy. We have to go out and find the information ourselves, because we've learned that we can't always trust the media, or maybe usually these days. So I spent the time watching the videos, deep in the web, trying to figure out what happened. And first thing I'd like to say and to point out is that this was nothing short of a miracle. The fact that President Trump turned his head to the right just as the trigger was pulled, and thereby changing the impact point of the bullet from the back of his head, or from the middle of his head to his ear. I mean, it's just something that is unbelievable. It's otherworldly, and people all the time ask, where's God? How come we don't see miracles these days? That was a miracle, ladies and gentlemen. That was just not a coincidence. It didn't just so happen to happen. And all I could think about is the verse that says, in the Bible, it says, he who blesses Israel will be blessed. And Donald Trump blessed Israel, the land of Israel, the state of Israel, the people of Israel, with so many decisions that he made that we can go through another time, that are easy to find. And they're really objectively a huge blessing for the state of Israel and for the people of Israel and for the land of Israel, to see God extend his hand like that to save Donald Trump on that day. I mean, that's how I see it. You're free to believe whatever you believe. That's the beauty of this country. But for me, it's too big of a thing to just say it was just a coincidence. Just so happened to be he turned his head. Just what a moment. And listen, despite the fact that this is still one of the darkest moments in our country's history, an assassination attempt on a former president and now current presidential candidate, leading presidential candidate, in such a divisive time as well, is just something that's one of the worst moments in American history. But it would have paled in comparison if that shot would have hit its intended target and would have taken out the president. I mean, that just would have been catastrophic for our country in so many different ways. Catastrophic for him and his family, of course, but just for our whole country, our whole political system. I mean, just I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole of what that could have been, but it wasn't, and thank God it was not. And to see the responses though of people, we had about 12 hours of pretty decent responses from generally from people. I'm going to put the media on the side for a second. But in general, people just were standing up saying, look, this is a bridge too far. We've done too much. We got to lower the heat. This is not what we want for our country. And I believe most Americans believe that. But of course, the loud voices come after that. People celebrating the shot and making statements online of, lamenting the fact that the shooter missed. And, of course, the internet always brings out the worst in people. So there's a little element of that. But we're seeing it also in the mainstream media. And back to the mainstream media, I mean, it's just unbelievable to see the CNNs of the world unable to call this an assassination attempt, unable to say that Trump was shot at a rally. I mean, the initial headlines from so many of these folks, the New York Times, CNN, etc., online that afternoon and that evening, were saying that Trump was taken off the stage by the Secret Service. I'm not explaining why. Trump fell on stage and taken off the stage by the Secret Service. Incident at the Trump rally. They could not say it. They could not bring themselves to say what happened. Just that very fact is sad, and it's something that we need to look at as a country. The U.S. government needs to look at. That's Congress and the FCC. Remember, these news agencies have lots of protections under the law as news agencies. If they are propaganda arms, not news agencies, who can't even say that the former president was shot, that there was an assassination attempt for hours, if not for days, then why are they being considered news outlets for so many other reasons? They shouldn't be. We should look at them and we should really put some pressure on them, because we need a free and honest press in our country, not just a free press, a free and honest press in our country, and we don't have that. And I can tell you that I do exercise every day. I hope you can tell. That's a joke, but I do exercise every day, and every other day I run, and usually I run with friends. If I don't have anyone around, like I do on this trip, listen to music. On Spotify, there's something called the Daily Drive, which is a mix of news and music. And it's a great tool for me to also listen to what the other side is saying on things, because it's mostly the NPR and other left-wing media. And running yesterday, listening to what the NPR and other left-wing news outlet were saying about lowering the temperature of the rhetoric in this country. I agree, we have to do it. All sides need to do it. But that's not what they were saying. They were talking only about Donald Trump and the Republicans, and the MAGA Republicans need to lower the temperature of their rhetoric in this country. And look what's happening. And what a dishonest way and counterproductive thing to do. What a dishonest way to address this issue, and a counterproductive approach to this issue, because we know that for the last several years, the mainstream media, President Biden, other elected officials have been calling President Trump and the quote MAGA Republicans the worst names in the book. Whether they're Hitler, not even Hitler-like, Hitler themselves, they're coming to take your rights, they're coming to do this, they're coming to do that, they're the devil reincarnated, basically. Even saying that they should put a bullseye on Donald Trump. What do you think was going to happen if that's what you say day after day, month after month, year after year? Now, I'm not saying that the media is culpable. Culpability, the fault is only with the shooter. But to think that they bear no responsibility is ridiculous. Of course they do. In fact, we all do. We all bear responsibility for the level of the rhetoric in this country. We have to go back to a time where we can go after our political opponents based on substance. Why are they bad for our country? Why are they bad for our city? Why are they bad for our county? Why are they bad for our state? If they're bad people, why are they bad people? It's fine. It's all fair game. We have to have honest discussions. But we know we cannot cross the line. We can have a discussion all day about what that line is, but one thing I know is that we can all agree that that line has been crossed across the board. And we have to dial that back if we want to have an America, a country for all of our kids and grandkids to live in, and to live in peacefully, and to be able to prosper the way we have in our generation and in our parents' generation. That is something that is incumbent upon all of us, Republicans and Democrats, right, left, and middle, and independents, and confused, and everything in between. All of us need to get on that train together to bring our country back together, because if not, it's going to continue going back in this terrible direction, and none of us want to see that. In the good news category, the president selected J.D. Vance, Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio, to be his running mate as vice president. I think it's a phenomenal selection. J.D. Vance, 39 years old. It's his first term. His story is incredible, his personal story. You should read Hillbilly Elegy, his book. Go online and buy it. Don't watch the movie. I mean, the movie's great, but read his book, read his words about his story, his rough upbringing. And really, he is the story of America and the American dream, because despite his terrible circumstances that he grew up in, he worked his tail off. He was smart. He was dedicated. He was focused. And despite all of everything that he had going against him, he made his way to Yale Law School, to the military. He was a Marine. Then he was elected to the U.S. Senate. I mean, just unbelievable story in and of itself. And now selected to be the vice presidential candidate. I mean, what a story. I was lucky enough to spend some time with JD, or Senator Vance, hopefully Vice President Vance, when he was in Israel just a couple years ago before he began his term as senator. Really got to know him a little bit and got to see him, the way he thinks and approaches different issues. He wanted to learn about Israel a little bit and see it himself. Visited the Holocaust Museum, the Yad Vashem, the Western Wall, met with some experts, just to have discussions and understand the Middle East. And it was just incredible to sit there with this young guy, younger than me even, who just was as bright as they came, and just came at every issue from the perspective of what's best for America and how does this help America, not just accepting premises that were thrown at him, just wanting to challenge everything in the most honest and intellectual way possible. Just really exciting to have someone of that caliber in the Senate, let alone as Vice President of the United States. I think we're all going to see a lot from him. He's not going to be a wallflower vice president like we have now. I mean, someone who's really going to get into issues. And I think that also brings a big level of vitality and youth, for obvious reasons, to the campaign. People were saying these days, playing Monday morning quarterback, that the president should have picked someone that was better for him in one state or the other. From my perspective, President Trump does not need any help getting elected in November. This is all about who would be the best partner for him as president of the United States, and that is J.D. Vance. So I wish Senator Vance, hopefully soon Vice President Vance, all the good luck in the world. And I think we will all see a lot from him. It's going to make 2028 a very, very interesting race. Remember, Trump can only serve for one term, Biden two, only one more term if he gets there. But we are going to see Trump in November take the win. That's my prediction. It's not really out there. I think the odds are with Trump big time. But that also brings me to the RNC, the Republican National Convention that's happening this week. I will be there. I'm going to Milwaukee just after I finish filming this today. It is a big celebration of the moment that we are at as Republicans, the moment that President Trump is at, not just personally with everything that's happened with the case now, the documents case now being dismissed, the failed assassination attempt, just winning in the polls, just getting to where he is. No one thought it was possible the first time. No one thought it would be possible the second time. But here we are. So it's a big celebration. But what I hope to see from the Republican Party, from the organized Republican Party, from the PACs, from Trump's campaign as well, is that Trump needs to run like he's 10 points behind, not like he's 10 points ahead. Because anything can happen in an election. Luckily, fundraising is through the roof right now. Elon Musk just made a huge astronomical commitment. The reports are $45 million a month through November. That'll help make a big push. There's going to be lots of other big checks and also small checks. There's the groundswell of support for the president. His response from that shooting, that moment when President Trump was shot, he falls down, and instead of just being dragged out by the Secret Service, he fights with them to be able to put his fist up and say, fight, 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 that he's still fighting, he's still pushing forward. I mean, that's something that shows the character of the man that I think nobody really knew was there. I mean, that's like, as much as you could support Donald Trump or dislike Donald Trump, it's irrelevant. When you see that, when you see him in that moment of great stress and agony and adrenaline, to stand up and have the presence of mind to try to still elevate the crowd and the people that are there watching him so they don't get down based on the occurrence. I mean, that's just a tremendous moment for him in his career. It's a tremendous moment in American history, and it's going to lead him to a win in the White House in November. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our quick point. There were so many different news stories to talk to you about this week. I want to keep these under 15 minutes, so I didn't bring them up. Senator Menendez was convicted. That was a big one. 16 counts of corruption, bribery, etc. Just real sad to see that. I don't celebrate that in the least. It's just going to increase distrust in our government and in Congress. And it's just sad to see someone literally take gold bars in exchange for favors in U.S. Congress as a member of the Senate in such important committees. It's just something that's a terrible day for America. It's not really in the news much today because of so much else going on. Lots of other big stories this week, but that's all we've got for this week here on Quick Point. Thanks for this is the episode of Standpoint this week, and we'll see you next week. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and all the great things you do to support podcasts. Have a great day.